Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And this particular fave is a particular fave of mine. It's Monteverdi's Orfeo. Really, the very first opera that has come down to us. I mean, the first. It's a very rare thing when you could put your finger on it and say in history, this is where it all started. But this is where it all started. It really did. Now, musical historians will tell you that the first opera technically was Jacopo Peri's Eurydice or Eurydice or whatever you want to call it. And maybe that's true. I don't know. I'm not going there. As far as I'm concerned, this is the one. And the reason it's the one is because it was composed for a particularly illustrious royal occasion, the Duke of Gonzaga's marriage or someone like that in Mantua. That's where Monteverdi was hanging out at the time. Around 1607, I think, is when this popped up. And, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's about when it was. And the reason we know is because he prepared a presentation score. Thank God. So that tells us in extreme detail, first of all, what the scoring is, how to play it, how to perform it, who played it, what they did, and we can perform it. I mean, that's the whole point. Whereas so much of the other music from this period is lost or exists only in sketchy form because it wasn't common during those days to compose actual orchestral scores. That's not how things worked. You had the basics and you gave it to the people at the local opera house and they arranged it for whatever they needed to arrange it for. That's what happened in the other two surviving Monteverdi operas, the Incarnazione di Poppaea and Il Ritorno di Ulysses, or Ulysses, or whatever it's called, the Return of Ulysses and the Coronation of Poppaea. Those two operas have only come down to us in what are effectively vocal scores with the instrumental parts in multiple parts written out, but with no scoring and no other information. And so performing them is quite the operation of conjecture. But here it isn't. Here we know what he wrote for and what instruments play where. And so we are in really, really good shape to say, okay, this is it, the first opera. And as in most cases, the first opera it was based on a sort of philosophical proposition. That philosophical proposition was the elevation of poetry with the addition of music. And the words were just as important as the music. Those of you who are not big fans of sort of late Renaissance Italian poetry may not be as captivated by the words as late Renaissance Italians were. But the idea behind this was not to have regular arias and recitatives and things as we got later on in the classical period. It's consistent music, a consistently flowing declamation with certain what you might call formal set pieces actually motivated by the plot inserted. For example, there's a fabulous part in act whatever it is when well, let me tell you where it comes. I'll tell you where it actually shows up. When Orfeo has to enchant what's his name, and Pluto and his wife, Plutonesca, whatever she's called, to send him back his Eurydice. And so he sings something called Possente Spiritu or something like that. It's, spirits of darkness, give me back my gal. That's basically what it is. And let's see, this has four or five acts, doesn't it? Yes, 5 acts. And, the acts don't have normal climaxes and things, but they're choruses which sing magical-like tunes. They're wonderful. There's the nymphs and shepherds floating around, and they do nymph and shepherd-like things. They do this lasciate, shuchi. Here we go. Lasciate i monti. Lasciate i monti. It's it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And here's, let's see, he's going down to hell to hang out because what's-her-name is dead. And she got bitten by a snake, by the way. Yes. There's a snake here, and up there it is, Possente Spirito. Oh, I got it right. That's the big number. It's 8 minutes long, and it's very elaborate vocally. It's written out in extreme detail for the vocal line. What first turned me on to Orfeo was actually a television broadcast. It was Nicholas Harnoncourt's. They were, I think, Zurich Opera productions. He did all three of them. And they were very heavily edited, and the parts were reassigned somewhat. Orfeo was given to, I think, Philippe Hutenlocher. It was baritone, and the vocal part greatly simplified as a result. But it didn't matter. I was just enraptured by these things. I thought they were amazing. I couldn't believe what it was. And when you think that something written in 1607 could be so unbelievably appealing to us today, it really is something extraordinarily special. And my performance of choice is John Eliot Gardiner's. Now, he has a certain affinity for Monteverdi, since he's playing with the Monteverdi choir and the English Baroque soloists and His Majesty's sackbuts and cornets for the opening fanfare, which is really also incredibly cool. But this is, I think, one of the most healthy performances. It's big and it's bold and it's colorful and it's exciting, and it doesn't try and, denature the thing with too much period instrument falderall. It really is wonderful. And the cast is terrific. You've got Anthony Rolfe Johnson as Orfeo, and Juliane Baird, however you want to pronounce her, is Eurydice, and music, La Musica, is Lynn Dawson, and the Messaggera. The Messaggera comes in, and at least in the Harnoncourt production, she's like all wearing black, and she announces that Eurydice has been killed by the poisonous snake. That's her job. And she really spends a lot of time saying that Eurydice has been killed by the poisoned snake. And then, because she was tasked with the sorrowful obligation of telling this to Orfeo, she goes and commits suicide or something, or wants to, bury herself in grief for the rest of her existence. So the Messaggera is Anne-Sophie von Otter, and Nancy Argenta is a nymph. She's a nympha. And Hope, you get Hope as a character, is Mary Nichols, and John Tomlinson is Caronte. Caronte is, Charon, the guy who rows you across the river Styx. Actually, I think that's who gets the aria Possente Spirito, and Orfeo has to talk him into, ferrying him across or something like that. And let's see, who do we have here? Plutoni, yes. Plutonium is Willard White, and Proserpina, who's Plutonia, Mrs. Pluto or Plutone, is Diana Montague. I mean, it's just an amazingly strong cast of people who Gardiner worked with for most of his career. They sing fabulously. The playing is wonderful. The orchestra is wonderful. The sound is wonderful. It's just wonderful. And, if you really, even if you don't particularly care for opera, it's such a fabulous thing to be able to just say, okay, this is it. The first one, the one. Everything else flows from this. I mean, did it all flow from that? Well, no. It got going independently and evolved on its own. But it was a real historical moment back there in 1607, and we're very, very lucky to have this. And Monteverdi was a genius, and the music is fantastic. So why not? Absolutely. Let's go for Orfeo. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.